people like me. You need people like me so you can point your fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Okay, we'll start with this. What was the Joseph Parker versus Fabio Wardley WBO interim title fight? Lots of critiques and criticisms for the card being billed as a pay-per-view
on both sides of the Atlantic Ocean.
Having seen it in its entirety, the undercard failed to deliver, but the main event didn't. So let's talk about what we saw. Joseph Parker established his jab early on. And throughout the fight, from the beginning to the end, his jab was his best weapon. You could argue that he made things difficult for himself by getting away from that jab. Established an early lead with it, touching Fabio Wardley with it, interrupting Fabio Wardley with it. All off the jab. Everything was off the jab. Joseph would land the jab, then power forward.
Maybe that was a part of the problem for Big Joe.
He'd land the first punch, he'd land the jab, then step in to try to bring over a second, but he'd step so far in,
can't really land it.
Things would just get messy after that, fall apart. After he lands the jab, many jabs landed. Backing up Fabio Wardley and putting him on the ropes, Joseph Parker teeing off, trying for a lot of punches. Credit to Fabio for hanging tough and hanging in there, but that really was the story of the fight for long spells.
He lands the jab, tries for another punch, falls in, they end up too close to each other, and they'd end up in a clinch. The fight progresses and Joseph Parker has established an early lead. He's way ahead on the scorecards. He was way ahead on mine.
Time of the stoppage, I only had Fabio Wardley winning 3, maybe 3 rounds. 4 if you're generous. Kind of have to be when you're talking about a Frank Warren fighter on a Frank Warren card.
Fabio Wardley stayed dangerous throughout. Deficit and all, you got the sense in the exchange that Fabio only really needs one shot to get in to turn the tide and turn this fight around.
One punch.
One critical hit while he's getting outboxed, while he's getting outthought. Joseph Parker, at least in the first half of the fight, and what gave him an early lead was his experience,
yes,
his range control,
yes,
his accuracy, and his poise.
Yes.
That he wasn't greedy.
Yes.
Throughout the first half of the fight, in the middle, and it's towards the end that things sort of start to fall apart. Now, maybe that's Joseph Parker giving into exhaustion.
Both did.
Starting to get tired.
They both were.
Seemingly moving away from his poised and controlled approach, trading more, exchanging more, and Fabio Wardley in the 11th round, down on the cards, gets in with a good one, strong right hand that sends Joseph Parker reeling, careening.
Fabio jumps on him, going in for the finish, throwing salvos and salvos of punches, waves. Very few are actually getting in.
Making contact.
We would literally see the same stuff from Joseph not but a few rounds before, where he'd get in with a good one and he'd throw a salvo of punches, and Fabio would survive. Seems that Howard Foster didn't give Joseph Parker that same courtesy, didn't give him the chance to.
Some people screaming, bloody robbery, bad stoppage after the fight, and we'll get to that.
But Fabio nails him with a good one. Sensing his man is hurt, he jumps on him. He does what he's supposed to do. I personally thought that Joseph Parker was doing a good job of hanging in there and hanging tough, bobbing and weaving and slipping and covering up.
A lot of those punches Fabio was throwing weren't actually getting in.
Even worse, that it looked like Fabio, after ripping those combinations, had punched himself out, as both arms were down to his sides, giving Joseph Parker the opening to turn the tide in the 11th.
Opening that he was robbed of by Howard Foster, who's developed a reputation over a long stretch of time as one of the worst referees.
By and large, one of the worst referees in boxing. So Fabio Wardley stays an unbeaten fighter with another come-from-behind win. It's the second time he's proved me wrong. The second time consecutively. The first was the Justice Hooney fight, where he comes back, knocks Hooney out. Now this.
Hooney!
Can't fault Fabio Wardley for what is bad officiating or bad refereeing. He's not the one that stopped the fight. Howard Foster did. The most that I can say about Fabio is credit to him. For a fighter with little more experience than a couple of fights on the white-collar circuit, no real amateur background, to have come this far is commendable. And what he's endured in his last 2 fights, having to come from behind.
He's a tough son of a bitch.
Really is. So now he's WBO interim champion in line for the Alexander Usyk fight.
Now for the fallout. Dan Canastota of CompuBox reacted to the stoppage by saying, horrible stoppage.
Hall of Fame promoter Lou DiBella said that fucking stoppage was horrendous. This was stopped against an A-level fighter without any sense of danger or necessity. Just fucking awful. So much fucking nonsense. Joe Parker deserved better. Ariel Helwani reacted by saying that was an awful stoppage, I'm sorry. Wardley was pouring it on, yes, but Parker was still in it. Parker was ahead on the judges' scorecards by 6 rounds, and another 2 had it 5-5. Chris Mannix said, bad stoppage, full stop, too early, too much at stake. Parker was winning the fight, and Parker was slipping a lot of those closing shots. But Parker had to hold in that situation to take the ref out of it. Being a boxing fan, you sort of have to be cynical. You know that if the fight were at a more neutral location, you would have got more neutral officiating, neutral refereeing. Because in the UK, on a Frank Warren show, you know Howard Foster is in a hurry to wave this thing off. Al Bernstein reacted by saying, I didn't even see the fight, but based on the reactions of just about everyone, it appears Howard Foster was a biased and incompetent ref again tonight. What else would we expect from one of the worst referees of all time? Oh, he's also a bad judge, too. Rick Glacier
Said something similar.
me start by saying I did not see Wardley versus Parker, but I do know Howard Foster is one of the worst referees in boxing. Everybody is saying it was a horrible stoppage, and there's always truth in quantity. Everybody can't be wrong. Everybody knows what they saw. Boxing scribe of Australia, Ben Damon, reacted by saying, great fight, but a very, very bad stoppage. Marcos Villegas of the United States said, yo, that stoppage was ass. Lace Turner, Joseph Parker just got robbed. What the fuck was that stoppage? Would have been so much better if you just let the boys do what they do and let Fabio Wardley finish. If Joseph Parker is that hurt, let him go out on his shield. Problem a lot of people got is Joseph Parker wasn't that hurt. He's slipping, he's bobbing, he's weaving, he's catching shots on the arms and gloves. It just looks like Howard Foster was in a hurry to wave this thing off to give Fabio the victory.
Joe was taking a lot of shots, but a lot of them he was blocking and slipping, but he was taking some, and there was an opportunity for the fight to just stop it. Do I think it was fair? It was a battle, wasn't it? You know, it could have been the other way around. One punch here and there. It's just the nature of the sport, and heavyweight boxing, that's the way it is. I thought Joe was ahead in the fight, boxing very well, but you have to give credit to Fabio. He found a good punch. That's the way it goes, isn't it? So,
Couldn't catch this I feel TV. Joe, how you feeling, mate?
Listen, I feel fine. It's one of those things, eh? You box well and then you get caught, and I still felt fine after the fight was stopped. So I'm not the one in charge of letting the fight go on or stopping it, but hey, it's boxing.
Was Fabio better or tougher than what you expected or not?
Tougher, yeah, tougher than what I expected, and I give credit to him for the performance he put on. I felt like it was going back and forth. I had some moments, he had some moments. I felt like I was controlling the fight, but again, he's got a big punch, you know. And what can I say?
And I did ask you in there that it was always said that it was a fight that you didn't need to take, but you took it because you wanted to fight. No regrets.
No regrets. If there's another fight coming soon, I'll have to take any fight. I just want to continue fighting. I still feel like I got a lot to give. Obviously, it didn't go my way tonight, but what can you do? Accept it and move on and go get a burger now. I'm freaking hungry.
Well, listen, I appreciate your time. It was a great fight. And just the last one about the stoppage. No problems about that stoppage?
I thought I was fine to carry on. But I guess, again, I'm not the one in charge of letting the fight go on or stopping it. So what can I do? Accept it and move on. Otherwise, there's no point crying about it. It's not going to change anything. Let's do a rematch. I'd love to go again.
What a guy. Joe Parker. God bless you. And
listen, it sucks to lose, but hey, what can you do?
Top man. All right. Love you, Joe. Go on, mate.
Trademark stoicism of Joseph Parker is why he's been so successful over the years and why I still believe he'll be back.
It's out of your hands. There's no sense in crying about it. And this is not the end. Remember that Joseph Parker,
He's only 33 years old. He's one of the younger heavyweights in the heavyweight division, though simultaneously one of the more experienced heavyweights. Having been in there with damn near everybody, he could always do a rematch with Anthony Joshua.
now that they are both coming off of losses, he could always reschedule the fight with Daniel Dubois, the fight that they were supposed to have.
Joseph Parker is still a somebody in today's heavyweight division where nobody's protecting their O. The boys are going at it. The boys are fighting, making this one of the more robust eras of heavyweight boxing since the 90s.
This is a vibrant and thriving era of heavyweights, and Joseph could always do that. See about fighting Anthony, see about fighting Daniel, because he's still a somebody. He's still a person of interest to up-and-comers like Fraser Clark, Moses Atalma, Tira Moana.
He's still a litmus test for a lot of guys that are coming up and trying to make a name for themselves. A Richard Torres. And that's on the international stage involving international money. I think Turkey El Sheikh could still find use for Joseph Parker. Domestically, you've got No Limit Promotions and Tasman Fighters in Australia, both well-to-do promotional outfits that stage big shows on a regular basis in Australia.
Isn't Joe from New Zealand?
He is, but New Zealand and Australia are right next to each other. Joe could always stage a series of smaller fights now that he has to go back to the drawing board. Like what he did after the loss to Joe Joyce, he had 2 or 3 small fights before jumping into the big ones.
He could do that.
It's not the end of Joe Parker. Door's not closed for him, mostly because he's still a person of interest. He's still a somebody. There are a lot of people out there that feel that was a bad stoppage,
So his stock didn't really take a hit.
even if his record did. And what Joe's track record shows is that he don't duck no smoke. He don't shy away from no challenge. So that in and of itself actually makes it easier for him to stay relevant in the heavyweight scene. May have lost his WBO interim title, but I pose to you a scenario. Very soon, Kubrat Pulev and Murat Gassiev are going to be fighting for what is Kubrat Pulev's WBA regular title, the Reggie belt, as part of an IBA Pro show.
IBA that used to oversee all of the amateur boxing until they were stripped of recognition by the IOC, and thus the IBA has thrown their hat in the ring of professional boxing, staging professional boxing matches, and they're the ones promoting Pulev versus Gassiev. I anticipate that Murat Gassiev, the former unified cruiserweight champion, will win the fight. But when he does, he's not next in the rotation to challenge Oleksandr Usyk for undisputed. The winner of that fight is not next in line, which leaves the door open for a Joe Boxer Parker to step in and challenge the winner of that fight.
Younger, many years younger than a Kubrat Pulev, and more relevant to the heavyweight division than a Murat Gassiev. Murat, who's been flying on the outskirts, the fringe of the heavyweight division ever since he moved up from cruiser. He could use a fight with a somebody like a Joe Boxer Parker.
Somebody's willing to make an offer on Joseph Parker's behalf, or if the IBA are willing to pay for the fight themselves.
This is all theoretical. This is just me bouncing ideas around. But I don't see why Joseph Parker can't target the winner of that fight, go after the WBA regular title, and if you can get it, you're back on top. You're back to where you were. You lost the WBO interim that lined you up for Usyk, but you can always fight for the WBA.
Does the same thing.
The bottom line is, even though Joseph was a man hard done yesterday in the United Kingdom, this is not the end. And he has several paths back to the top to get back in line to fight for undisputed.
It was an all-time heavyweight great fight. Fabulous fight. We always knew it was going to be. And it's what we said from the start. It only takes 1 second with him, and he turns the fight round. Thank you.
Does that mean it's Alexander Usyk next for Fabio?
Sorry?
Is it Alexander Usyk next for Fabio?
It is. If he doesn't do it, then he'll be stripped and he'll be declared champion. Fabio is now the WBA and WBO interim champion. So that's it now. That's where we are.
You have to have some respect for Fabio Wardley and how he got to where he got to. Dubious stoppage and all. It's not Fabio's fault.
No, that's just Howard Foster. doing what Howard Foster does, and for obvious reasons. The moment it looked like Fabio might have had his man in trouble, Howard Foster did what he had to do to secure Fabio the victory.
It's the interpretation most people have. That's what seems obvious, but Fabio really is one of the more exciting, spontaneous heavyweights in the heavyweight division. His explosive power, what he lacks in experience, what he lacks in X's and O's, he makes up for in explosivity and that cannon right hand.
Tough as old boots.
That's what he is. The silver lining in all of this, in spite of that dubious stoppage, is that things do seem a bit more exciting now that it boils down to Usyk versus Wardley instead of Usyk versus Parker. That's the upside of a big upset. Going in, Joseph Parker was widely favored to beat Fabio Wardley with the fans, with the odds makers.
Upsets are good for boxing.
Believe it or not, when everything doesn't go according to the script, according to plan, that reminds people that it is up for grabs, and this is a sport.
Albeit an imperfect one that we all watch, it's still a sport, and anything can happen. Most of all, in the heavyweight division, where I say it all the time, and other people do too, that the heavyweight division is unlike any of the lower weights, any other division, because it's the most spontaneous. That's the division where anything can happen, where it can all look a certain way before the fight, and during the fight, boom. You're always one punch away from getting knocked out in the heavyweight division. That's what makes it different. It could all look a certain way, play out a certain way, and boom, bam. Let's just be honest. While it's rough that Joseph Parker will now not get his crack at the apple with Usyk, even though a lot of people feel that he deserved it, things are a little bit more exciting now that it boils down to Usyk versus Wardley instead of Usyk versus Parker. If everything had gone according to plan, the way that you and I thought it was going to go, that's really not as exciting.
That Parker beats Wardley like everybody expects him to, and then Usyk beats Parker like everybody expects him to.
It's really not as exciting.
There is a silver lining here. It's that Fabio Wardley is fast emerging as one of the more entertaining heavyweights in the heavyweight division, and that equalizer, that right hand of his,
It's got a reputation.
brings an air of spontaneity, I think, to an Usyk fight that Joseph wouldn't have brought to an Usyk fight, that Fabio's never really out of the fight. Even if he's way down, way behind on the judges' scorecards.
It's not over till it's over, and he's not out of the fight until it's over.
The United Kingdom really is the epicenter for all the world-class heavyweights anyway, so Fabio winning the fight keeps the money over there. If Joseph would have won, I would have wondered, well, who's going to pay for the Usyk fight? What if Turkey doesn't want to? I got nothing against Joe Boxer Parker, but you know that Usyk versus Parker is not as big a fight to the Brits as Usyk versus Wardley. Now you have another big heavyweight matchup that you can do in the UK.
That's the silver lining.
Though doing it in the UK, Usyk will once again have to be on his P's and Q's lest he be subject to another Howard Foster stoppage.